Be March Boxing, and I'm back at it with another post-fight review. WBO vacant 175-pound light heavyweight title on the line. Maxim Vlasoz versus Joe Smith Jr. And this was a very good fight from beginning to the end. I'm hearing commercial breaks, still waiting the decision. But in the first half of the fight, the man Maxim Vlasov was very herky jerky, had very awkward movements, using his jab, lowering his hands, luring the man Joe Smith Jr. in. Joe Smith Jr. was getting tagged with some beautiful pull counters, nice counter punches by the man Joe Smith. I'm sorry, Maxim Vlasov. Um, Joe Smith Jr. had his left eye cut in round two. You know what I'm saying? And it was crazy because Joe Smith Jr. looked like the eye was growing into his eye, but lucky for him, he had the man Stitch Duran in his corner, one of the best, if not the best, cut man in the boxing game. So Joe Smith Jr. started to pick up the pace in rounds 3 and round 4 on my card. Maxim Vlasov was getting caught. Okay, let's hear let me hear what they're gonna have for the decision. Let me hear what they got for the decision. Watching two fights at the same damn time. Post fight review. Let's hear the post fight. Let me hear the scorecards. Uh oh. Uh oh. Joe Smith Jr. got the W. Holy cow. Joe Smith Jr. got the W, man. Hey, man. This is controversial, y'all. This is controversial. Very controversial. I must admit, this is controversial, man. Joe Smith Jr. Now, after 6 rounds, I had this fight a draw. You know what I mean? I gave Maxim Vlasov round one, round two, rounds 3 and 4. I gave it to the man Joe Smith Jr. in round 6. I gave to Joe Smith Jr. You know what I mean? So after 6, I got it 3 rounds apiece. Round 7, the man Maxim Vlasov almost got knocked out by Joe Smith Jr. Joe Smith Jr. did his close his eyes thing, threw a kind of overhand right, kind of like a straight punch. It was a kind of counter punch with Maxim Vlasov missing a straight right, reaching in, and the man, what's his name? Joe Smith Jr. caught him with the kind of overhand flush right, and then knocked him off balance, and he had him on this kind of had to buckled his knees, and sure enough, the man Maxim Vlasov looked like that was gonna be it for him. He definitely had a chin. He displayed a chin tonight. You know what I mean? Joe Smith Jr. though, one thing I must say that he abandoned mostly in this fight, he abandoned the jab, and he also abandoned the body shots. You know what I mean? His jab wasn't as stiff or an authoritative jab as it could be, but that's because he started getting frustrated. You know what I mean? And started throwing them haymakers. You know what I'm saying? And Maxim Vlasov also started to wear down, not quite as active anymore. in the later rounds. Uh, Let me hear Joe Smith Jr. Let me hear Joe Smith Jr. One judge had it 114, 114, a draw. One judge had it 115, 113. And another judge had it 115, 112. Both judges had it for Joe Smith Jr. In the later rounds, I can't remember which round, whether it was 10 or 11. The, the man, Joe Smith Jr., hit the man, Maxim Vlasoz, with some kind of rabbit punches. And Maxim Vlasoz, took a knee. And he got his 5 minutes to recuperate, you know what I mean? And, Joe Smith Jr., like I said, after the seventh round where he almost stopped the man, Vlasoz, Vlasoz got a whole new sense of urgency and started putting hands on the man, Joe Smith Jr., from rounds 8, 9, and 10, and 11. On my card, no, excuse me, round 10, that was the round where Joe Smith Jr. did the rabbit punching. So I gave him that round. And then I gave Joe Smith Jr. round 12 of the championship rounds, you know what I mean? So overall, in this particular fight, I had this fight 6 rounds apiece. I had it 6 rounds apiece. I had this fight a draw. They gave the victory to the man, Joe Smith Jr. And, Joe Smith Jr.'s fight is on the top rank. He's ESPN. He's the house fighter. I wasn't quite surprised, but really and truly, I scored this fight a draw. But if I did see anybody winning this fight, I do think it should have been Vlasoz, you know what I mean? Although Joe Smith Jr. in that 12th round, he did his thing, man, putting hands on the man and throwing punches and bunches, you know. But I'm not too mad at the decision, but I personally had this fight a draw, 114, 114. But congratulations to Joe Smith Jr. I think he escaped with a W. It was looking quite bleak for him after round 7. Rounds 8 and 9 and 11, I gave it to the man Vlasoz. But Joe Smith Jr. at least won the 12th round, and maybe that's what swayed the judges' opinions on who won this fight. So with that being said, B March Boxing about to seal the deal on this live stream. Post-fight review. Congratulations to the new WBO light heavyweight champion, Joe Smith Jr. He's come a long way in his second world title attempt after losing at 168 pounds to the man, Dimitri Bivol. You gotta say, man, gotta give the man Vlasoz props. The man Vlasoz is a guy who's fought as high as cruiserweight. Might have fought as a heavyweight for all I know, you know what I mean? But I know I did see him fight guys like Kujashayov and Duradulo, the Nigerian cruiserweight, you know what I mean? But compared to what the man Joe Smith Jr. did to a former WBO light heavyweight champion, Elidia Alvarez, and for this guy, Maxim Vlasoz, to be there standing, and I thought this fight's not a draw, I thought he won the fight. Got to give this Russian a lot of credit. B March Boxing, do your thoughts and comments. Let me go ahead and watch some Boots Ennis. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm gone.